There's a clip of this man walks in. It starts with Jesus in a coffee shop, probably drinking tea, and he's just sitting there
Moral
sipping.
coffee's okay.
And it's busy, and this man comes in, and it's his time of prayer, right? And he pulls out of his bag a big legal pad, and he's flipping through, and he's like, "Yeah, Lord, I need you to touch this, and this," and Jesus just is sipping on his drink, and this goes on, and like the guy's like upside down in his chair. It's kind of comical, but then at the end, he kind of takes a breath, and you see Jesus like lean in to speak, and he goes like, "Oh, look at the time! I got to run," and that's so much of how we get it. We do all the talking, but we never allow him to talk back to us.
Yeah. I am so excited. Day 3?
Day 3 of NRB 2024 in the Moralty Living Room.
And who do we have today there?
We have,
Smith?
besides Renee Leonard Kennedy, we have Greg Wilhelm. Wilhelm? Am I saying
You got
that
it.
Wilhelm is Helm's dude.
Wilhelm.
right? Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings reference. You always get one of those. Yeah.
So we are excited to talk to Greg today because, as many of you know, we have partnered with Pray.com, and you can find us there every Monday and Thursday. Greg has a crucial part of being on Pray.com. And so tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Pray.com, what your role looks like with them, and then we'll dive into some
Well, first
deep,
of all,
juicy questions.
thanks for having me on. I feel like I'm among celebrities today, so
Oh, yes.
I love it. I know you shoot in your home, right?
Yes.
On a normal basis.
On
so.
in the log cabin, and you're welcome there to bring the whole team to the
Oh
log
man,
cabin.
that'd be
yeah,
fun.
we would love
I'll
that.
put you up in a really nice hotel.
We would love. Thank you.
You don't get to stay on the log cabin. Sorry.
Oh,
Not
we're,
enough room.
we're thrilled to have you guys on the platform for
Oh, well,
sure.
we love it.
So.
Yeah.
I'm one of the newbies at Pray, so I've been around about 6
We are
months.
too.
So I know, right?
Okay.
So I've been in the faith vertical for 8-9 years now on the software side, and I started with a church management software very early in the company, and was able to scale and see the growth. I was the 4th employee hired, and next thing you know, we're 10 and 20 and 50, and then 175 employees. So
Right.
I've seen a lot of the tech side grow. And lo and behold, Pray reached out and said, "Hey, we could use some help and
Right.
and growth and everything." So I came over. I lead the sales team. I lead an incredible team of guys who are former pastors and just
Right.
tremendous individuals, hearts for the kingdom. So it's a dream come true.
Well,
that
it's
I get to work
amazing.
there.
I admire salespeople because I don't know about you. I can sell other people, but when it comes to selling myself, nah.
It's like everything goes out the door.
Everything goes out the door, and I'm like, no. What do you do? I exist.
Yeah.
What's your name? I don't know anything about myself.
Yeah.
Let me have an existential crisis.
Maybe
really.
here and here.
Yeah.
Just I
So you're on the business side of Pray.com then, and you're also a pastor.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'm curious, how do you define, business in a Christian realm of things? Because we have like church culture that can sometimes feel very corporate, and there's a very, how would you describe perhaps sales and Jesus and ministry and business?
How do we do it
How
as
do we
LLCs?
do it?
How do we do business as LLCs and other entities?
Yeah.
And we're selling products that want to get the word out about Jesus, but at the same time, we are turning in our K1s and everything else. How do we do that as not a nonprofit?
Yeah.
And maintain our integrity and not feel icky about it.
Oh, totally. Totally.
That was good.
Thank you. Wait. Okay.
There you go. That's good.
There
Sorry.
is such a fine line
Right.
when Jesus and business
Right.
clash, right? And one thing that I really appreciate about Pray, when I came over, one of the first things we talked about was they are about margin and mission.
Right.
They're about profit and purpose.
Right.
So when you know that coming in, that it's not just about the passion, it's also about the profit,
Right.
and you just know that going in, and you set that as the platform for everything that you do, it really helps us maintain that that non-icky line, as you
Right.
said, that
Which is the
we're
business term, by the way.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I learned that.
Non-icky. Don't look it up in the Urban Dictionary. Please don't.
I'm sure
Yeah.
that's Business 401
Right.
somewhere. Yeah, Harvard maybe. But yeah, just knowing that this is what it's about. And I think some companies lean maybe too far one way or another.
Right.
I think finding that balance between margin and mission and profit and purpose, that's really the best way, in my opinion, to
Well,
walk
I think
that
it's
line.
interesting because, and something I've seen among church culture, and I'm a former PK, I'm an ex-PK, so I've seen a lot of ins and out in different realms, and I've attended many different churches, mega churches, really small churches,
Sure.
rural in the middle of nowheresville churches. But I'm always questioning, what's the line, just like you were saying, between marketing and being efficient with what we're doing, and in turn for the gospel, and that being the motive of the heart, versus when does it become all about the fog lights and like the performance or just the arts or the next book, to where you see
the
almost,
next client,
and to where people almost
or-
put all the power and the elders and the pastor. They're not actually filtering things necessarily through scripture, but taking just what they hear from their preferred, pastor, speaker, singer, etc., or even people on an app or from a podcast.
and
not that we have
even your
like thousands
mission
of people
statement.
taking us. Does that make sense
Yeah.
though?
Yeah.
And how do you define that line?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And then I want you to follow up on this because I will forget it. How do we set our goals as people after
Right.
the heart of God?
Right.
So it's a two-parter because I will forget that,
Correct,
and I really
correct.
want to understand that.
Yeah.
So let's break it down.
Yeah, I think on the church side, there's such a temptation to try to compete with Hollywood. You're talking about smoke and lights and
Yes.
everything. And
Did you say mate with Hollywood?
what was that?
Mate with Hollywood?
Yeah, compete.
Which, no, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was like exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's a delicate balance on the church leader side, the faith leader side to, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but when the lights and the smoke and all that become the focus,
Right.
and Jesus is somehow lost in the smoke and the
Right.
lights, there's some danger there, and I feel at times, we've lost that.
Right.
And some of the most impactful moments of God in my life have been when everything was just stripped away, and
Right.
it was just
Yes.
that real communication where a lot of times, sometimes we just have to stop and allow Him to speak,
Right.
And there's an old clip, I used to share it when I was back in youth pastor days, so way a long time ago. But there's a clip of this man walks in. It starts with Jesus in a coffee shop, probably drinking tea, and he's just sitting there
Moral
sipping.
coffee's okay.
And, yeah,
right.
and it's busy, and this man comes in, and it's his time of prayer, right? And he pulls out of his bag a big legal pad, and he's flipping through, and he's like, "Yeah, Lord, I need you to touch this, this, and this," and Jesus just is sipping on his drink, and this goes on, and like the guy's like upside down in his chair. It's kind of comical, but then at the end, he kind of takes a breath, and you see Jesus like lean in to speak, and he goes like, "Oh, look at the time! I got to run!" And that's so much of how we get it. We do all the talking, but we never allow Him to talk back to us.
Yeah.
And when we have all the lights and the smoke and all the choreography, again, nothing wrong in and of themselves,
Right.
Individually, but when that becomes the focus and we lose Jesus, I think that's where the faith leader really needs to come back to the core and says,
Right.
this is what it's all about.
Because it is the noise.
Yeah.
And it's the noise, not just even the smoke and lights. I mean, I know last night, it was the noise of worry on me. I was worried about a specific thing that was happening with one of my kids that I needed to try to solve. And I've been going to the Lord for this, but it's been like, because that's what it's been like at this convention is just like ba 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 ba, and I'm like, God, help, and instead of, I slept with that noise of worry all night, and then I woke up this morning and just totally read in my Bible because I ended Leviticus today. And I get to move on to numbers. But I was writing, and I was saying, God, just please, please, please help. And I gave it, and I didn't necessarily listen, but I paused.
Yeah.
And I shared with him at breakfast. I hopped back on to find out what I'm going to do, and that it was solved. Like he had gone ahead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're saying is making sure the one way a business can do that is making sure that we take our time not to look at our watches and say we don't have time for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you feel like on that note, on what Renee's saying, that perhaps churches box in what Jesus looks like too much, where we have things so structured and timeline that there's no flexibility when in fact God sits outside of time?
Man, the God we serve is a creative God. We see that all around us every day, right? In creation. And to think that, services are regimented by our time and not his, and we don't allow that margin or that space for him to move.
Right.
Yeah, I think that goes back to we need strong leaders of churches and faith leaders to say it's okay to get off schedule. It's okay to allow people to respond to what they're feeling right now a few more moments. So, and I know there's the extreme. There's no structure, and I think God's a God of structure as well.
Right.
So, again, there's a balance there that you just have to be sensitive. And
I do love it when pastors say, let's have a moment of silence. And it's more than 10 seconds. If we were a little more quicker in our way right there, and I know silence to some people, a whole minute would horrify them. But, and learning how to do that in our private world, maybe that's where it needs to start too.
Yeah.
As business owners.
Absolutely. Yeah. People leading people definitely need to be the first ones who are in tune. and they need to be on like a pray.com and get content and daily prayer life and really grounding back. I'm just a little bit behind you in Leviticus, right? I think my reading plan this year has some Psalms and Proverbs, so I'm not quite as full. But yeah, just taking that time and making sure ministry, especially on the faith leader side, ministry is an overflow. And if you're leading and it's not out of the overflow of your relation, I think there's potential to have some negative things happen if you're not ministering and leading out of the overflow of your relationship.
That's when
if you're scraping the bottom and that's what you're giving out, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
Do you think that churches, and I don't just want to designate to churches, let's just say Christian media in general, podcasters, influencers, sure, businesses, do you think that there can become an emphasis so much on your brand, getting yourself out there, that you end up missing the focus of why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah.
And how do you combat that? Especially because I was telling Renee, I start to get scared when people get power in a platform. It's not that that's inherently the bad thing, but when there's certain levels of power, and I think it's not just among, pastors, celebrities, musicians, but just among anyone who's influencing people.
Yeah.
There can be, that comes with a huge responsibility.
Yeah. I think you got to remain committed to your core, your values. At Pray, we talk a lot about leaving a legacy of helping people. And this goes back to how Pray began, with our founder and CEO was leading another organization. He was co-founders of a company that had patented the gimbal system to put cameras on the front of helicopters.
Oh, wow.
And they were using this to do business shoots of flyovers, and they built a fleet. And then they're like, we've got all these helicopters. We should probably be doing some other stuff with them. So they start transplanting patients from hospital to hospital and crash victims and different items like that. They get the attention of Hollywood. Hollywood's like, hey, we want to use your system here for movies.
Right.
So next thing you know, and this is not a Christian company at the time, they start all the Michael Bay movies, Transformers, Jurassic Park, all these big Hollywood movies.
It was a
Steve Gattina. Yeah.
Small world.
So they're in South America shooting a film with Tom Cruise. they're coming back for the day. One of the helicopters crashes, and the other co-founder, Steve's business partner, was in that plane crash, and he lost his life. And now Steve, a 29-year-old man, is trying to lead this growing company, and he's grieving inside, but he's also trying to help lead the people in the company. And Steve, in just a divine chance, met a former Navy SEAL buddy, and they sit down and start having some coffee together. And the Navy SEAL asked Steve, "How are you caring for yourself?"
Yes.
Steve didn't have a religious background. He had nothing to lean on. He's grieving on the inside, can't figure it out.
Right.
And he said, "I'm going to send you something." So he texted him a message from a pastor in Texas. They're in Los Angeles, right? So he gets this podcast message, and Steve listened to it, and that podcast changed his life.
Oh, my goodness.
And out of that, Steve began to say, if I want to know a sports score, I have ESPN. If I want music, I have Spotify or iTunes. Where do I go to find content like this?
Right.
How would I have ever found this message from a pastor in Texas that changed my life? And that's how Pray began.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So when we talk about leaving a legacy of helping others, we want to be that platform that has content that someone in a moment of need can go to. It's on their phone. It's right there. And they can go to, and we get testimonies daily of how it's changed people's lives. And we hear this all the time. And it's amazing. So to go back to the original question, you've got to go back to your core. And if we say we want to leave a legacy of helping others, we want to cultivate faith and community, we want to be the digital destination for faith, and that's something we talk about all the time.
Right.
Every day we have an all-team meeting across the world. We've got people across the world. And we talk about this every single day, and that's what keeps us grounded when we're looking at branding and marketing and how are we going to handle this conference or this conference. We always go back to this is what we're here to do.
Well, so when you set goals, then you come from that place of humility.
Oh, yeah.
And so that helps. How do you all set physical goals, not just financial? I mean, you know what I mean. But we want to reach X amount of people. We want to have X amount of clients. How do you all go about that?
Yeah.
As how did you put it?
Profit and purpose, margin and mission.
Profit and purpose.
Yeah. You know, we have ambitious goals.
I didn't notice.
I would say God-sized goals.
Yeah.
Things that, we can do the best we can, and we're a team that runs hard. We work really hard. We're all committed to the mission, the kingdom, and making the company go. But as we begin to set goals for the team, things to stretch us. And of course, again, we look at margin and mission. We're looking at both sides of the thing, of the equation there, and again, finding that balance. So, physical goals, we want to get all the way around the world, and that's why we're working with, and it's the favor of God. We're starting to work with telcos around the world that when you go buy your phone in South Africa, Pray is already loaded on that phone. We don't leave it up to chance. It's already on the phone. South America, Central America, and we're starting to grow that. And I don't know if we have a set goal, but we want Pray around the world. And we're at 16 million now, 16 million plus. We grow by about 25,000 downloads a day. We're thrilled to death that Pastor Jack Graham's Bible in a Year is #1 on podcast.
I know.
On iTunes. And
I was listening to that this morning.
We're littered through there, and we want to continue to have those people and that voice and that message up as far as we possibly can.
Let's translate this to an average business, or even a small podcast such as ourselves, Moral T, who we happen to be at LLC. How do we set goals for the kingdom of the Lord? And how do we do this?
What on Renee's note too, something I'd like to add or tag onto that is there's this idea of pursuing excellence. I think that's not a bad thing.
Nope.
But it's when that becomes the ultimate goal of, okay, it's only about the aesthetics, it's only about the appearance, it's only people liking me. So it's like that. How do you pursue excellence in something when in a world we have so much mediocrity, which it makes my soul wither and cringe. When people do things super half-aid. Can I say that?
Yeah,
I just did. Okay, great.
You can always say arse.
Arse, half-arsed. That's
Cussing the
very,
Irish.
I mean, KJV, that's very KJV, right? So,
well done.
and like Renee said, since we're an LLC, how do you do that, to where you're pursuing excellence, you want to focus on beauty and aesthetics, and you don't want to do something half-heartedly while also maintaining your why and your purpose.
Yeah. Well, I'm much with you. I'm an Enneagram 1. I'm a perfectionist.
I'm a 4. You're 1. Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry. I get her done before perfectionism.
There you go.
So I leave that to the Lord.
Yeah, and unfortunately, again, in the realm of Christianity, I'll say the media maybe loves to focus on the failures, the financial failures of Christian religious organizations. So unfortunately, I think a lot of that gets painted in that spectrum. And then there's a lot of distrust and a lot of doubt when it comes to that. So we are, internally, we are very transparent. When we have quarterly all company meetings, we look at the data. Everyone in the company sees where we're at, what's going on. So I think having a strong level of transparency internally. Of course, we're not sharing that publicly, but yeah, having that level of transparency, and with that transparency becomes alludes itself to accountability too.
Right.
That why are we doing all this? Everyone has a voice at that moment, to ask questions and say, hey, what's going on here? So I think that transparency and accountability is really the best way to, with the board of directors and investors, et I think having just that level of transparency really is the best way to go.
Wealth and being a wealthy Christian or a Christian of means is almost frowned upon.
That is so
Yeah.
true.
And it's really unfair because, you don't know privately what an individual does to help somebody.
Yeah.
And we are told not to let our, left hand know what our right hand's doing.
Sure.
And so it really has bothered me for a very long time that Christians get a bad rap when they make profit, when they make money, and that more than likely people are clicking on when they fell.
Yep.
It is so wrong.
It is.
And there's nowhere, and I mean, yes, and we can point to the rich young ruler, but that was a hard issue. I mean, it makes me so happy there are people, there are David Greens in this world, who are the man who, Walden Media, these people who are making money, but they handle it rightfully, they do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they live and take good vacations and things like that and have great homes, but they're also doing other things with that.
Yeah.
I think for some reason the image of a Christian, we're all supposed to walk around barefoot. And granted, we are speaking about Americans because around the world,
Oh yeah.
I mean, our percentage, Americans as a whole, every single one of us is rich compared to 98, 99% of the world. So there is something.
Yeah.
Like we all need to be looking at our life.
Oh yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I've been privileged to be on foreign soil multiple times, and that changes you when you see how well we have it here in America versus what you see around the world. So having that perspective, but going back, when people may approach us as a company and question the revenue and what we're doing with that. Again, we stand very open and transparent. We are profit and purpose, mission and margin, and that's the way it is. And there are those who believe, we should all be walking around with nothing. I don't think the love of money is the root of evil, right?
Right,
It's not
yeah. Right.
money. It costs money to get the gospel around the world.
It does.
Right.
So for the companies who are doing it and doing it well, take that and share. And that's what we're trying to do, help people.
Well, I think it's the dilemma for me. So I am a business owner as well, and I has an Enneagram 4 and a touchy-feely, way too overly emotional person. I'm constantly combating like this idea of, okay, I never want to see anyone as just a dollar sign. Like, I want to be relational with people, because it's like, and I feel that tear too between, okay, it's a business, I need to have a roof over my head, food on the table, but I also want to be intentional with people. I don't want to manipulate people. And I think that can be a line that I often feel like, and I don't want to generalize either in saying this, because I see so many churches, nonprofits, ministries with such a beautiful heart posture and correct motives. And that's what we've experienced with Pray.com too. We met you guys at the last NRB, and before even corresponding, like as partnering with you all, like you guys felt like family to us and very like shepherding.
You were already praying for us.
Yeah, no,
so it was
seriously,
really great.
so kind. Yeah. But there is this manipulation I see in certain circumstances where people, and even at NRB, I was telling Renee, I feel like some people have this need to throw themselves at you, or you feel like you have to sell yourself almost sure. And there's this manipulation and like self-gain, seeing people as a dollar sign versus intentionally, relationally caring about people, you know?
Yeah. And when those people come around, you just have to know, manipulation's a great word. That's a great word to use there. You know, I think you've just got to weed those people out. And if you surround yourself with the right people, especially even on the business side, I'm not talking even the religious side, I'm just talking the business world too, finding the people who have the right mission, the right core, the right heart, and aligning yourself with those people. You know, some of the leaders on our platform, I'll use Pastor Jack Graham. He has such a heart for the Spanish ministry.
He does.
And
I listened to him way back when on the radio.
Oh yeah,
like he was just on AM.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we see, you know, we're starting a new venture with translations, with AI tools. We've built some things together with AI that we've taken Pastor Jack Graham, and we've got a little clip that we produced in 90 seconds. He goes through like 6 different languages in his voice and his tone and inflection. It's phenomenal. And it's, you know, that's cool and that's fun, and that's, you know, with AI and all the tools and the opportunities that presents to us. But going back to him and knowing that he and his team really, it's not about just the coolness factor. It's really about, now we're not just reaching English. Now we're reaching Spanish. We're getting into communities that we would have never had a voice at before.
Yes.
And it's not about manipulation at that point. It's really the heartbeat that they really want to reach into Swahili and Portuguese-speaking cities and nations, and just, again, kind of going back to the core of why they do what they do.
Well, and really, honestly, we don't even have to leave the country. We've talked about this. We have friends who teach us ballroom dancing, and they speak Ukrainian and Russian.
Yeah.
And I mean, we do not. North Carolina is a melting pot. You can hear virtually every language.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I think it's beautiful that we do have those tools available to us. What would you say to people who want to step out in business? Give us some parting last words of, you know, being people with purpose and passion for the Lord.
Yeah. Well, we need more faith-based people in the business sector.
Right.
Small,
there
mid-size.
you go.
Yeah. We need people leading the charge, and if we're going to change the world and offer that message of redemption, why shouldn't that start with business leaders leading the way?
I mean, think about it. Christ was a carpenter, and I've just heard it recently. Was really more than likely stone worker, and so he probably had muscles, because stones, I don't know about you, I've moved some stones on my farm, and they're really heavy, and they hurt, and like you do have to develop some muscle.
A pump after 2 hours.
So I mean, the deal is he was a business person. He was a craftsman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe God has crafted everyone
Yes.
with a purpose and a
Yes.
passion.
He loves work.
Yes, and
Yeah.
finding that passion and purpose, and allow creativity to drive where that goes, and how that can impact the kingdom. Steve had no religious background, and God changed his life, and he was able to meet Matt Potter and Mike Lynn and Ryan Beck, and those are the 4 founders, and they all have. Ryan's on the technical side,
Yeah.
Mike's on the financial side, Matt is Mr. Everything,
Right.
So those individuals coming together and putting their expertise at work for the kingdom, it's just, I think finding where that is for you and going after it, and keep your heart right, and hold yourself accountable to the Lord. I firmly believe the Lord honors that and will bless that along the way.
Well, can you do us one last thing?
Would love to.
Would you pray for?
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
And
Yeah.
will you pray? You pray as you feel led.
'Kay.
So I just thank you so much.
Absolutely. Honored.
Greg
Honored and blessed to be here.
Wilhelm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for this opportunity, for what you're doing through this ministry, Morality. And I pray that any business owner, or maybe someone who's contemplating launching a business, venturing into an LLC, starting their own company, bootstrapping it from the ground up, I pray that you would lead them, guide them, and direct them. Lord, there is no doubt people who will hear this podcast that you have specifically crafted, and you have given them abilities and talents that are to be used for your kingdom. And Lord, I pray that you will just lead them and guide them, direct them in all things, in every decision, give them wisdom, give them perseverance and patience and peace along the way. Lord, I pray that you'll be with them. I pray that your hand will be upon Morality, God. Pray that you'll bless them and the work that they're doing, the voice that they are sharing, and give them great favor in these last days. Lord, we love you, and we thank you so much for your blessing, your faithfulness, your steadfastness,
Yes,
Lord.
Jesus.
We give you all the glory. It's in your name,
Yes.
Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so
so
much.
much. That was like
What we I see.
passion and therapeutic all in one.